Hey, Gator Nation. Welcome back to Respect Our Decision Pod of the People, our weekly Q&A show that we do exclusively for our YouTube channel. So if you're watching this, guys, and you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, man. Drop a like on the video. Hit the notification bell so you get a notification each time we upload new content. And drop us a comment or drop us a question for next week's episode, and we'll read that as part of our questions that we, answer every week. So, guys, before we get started, we also want to hit you up with that we really like it and appreciate it if you would go out there and check out our friends at Alma Mater and check out the fine merchandise that they have there that supports, not only a Gator business, but Gator athletes, like their new Jock Teeny t-shirt that they have. Or if you want to get the t-shirt that I'm wearing, or the hoodie, I should say, that I'm wearing here, or even the white Scripps hat that CJ had shown that he wears sometimes and that we did for our giveaway that our good friend Chris Sorley won last month. Plenty of great merchandise there. Go ahead, check it out. There will be links in the description of the video. Hit those up, man. Get you some great merchandise and support a great Gator business. Wes, what are our questions looking like this week, man?
We got. I was really excited about the questions this week. Usually I ask you and CJ. Yeah. Usually I ask you and CJ, and sometimes I comment. I think I'm gonna comment myself on a few of these.
Oh, he's getting greedy.
Just a few, maybe two or three.
There's a few he liked. He scoped them out.
Our first one though, CJ, I'm gonna give this one to you. This is from our friend of the pod, Lucas Mann.
He says, boy. All right, Lucas.
Do you think we are done in the portal?
Right now? Yeah. I think we're done.
Forever.
Forever. No more portal. We are done with the portal completely. No. Yeah, I think we're done. I unless we get like a graduate transfer that just like finishes up school and he's like, okay, I'm ready to go now. I could see that happening, but as of right now, yeah, I think we're done. I don't think you'll see anything, like I said, unless you get like a graduate transfer guy who's just finally finished his school. He's ready to move on, and he's jumping in the portal with those guys. You can't ever really tell because there's no real window for them. They can just leave and go as they please. So, unless we see something like that, yeah, we're probably done.
All right, Hirsch. This is from our winner of last month's giveaway. This is from Chris Shorley. He says, if all the national analysts are saying Florida will have another subpar season, why are they suggesting Billy is on the hot seat? And he has a two-part, so I'll leave you with that first, and I ask the second part of his question, the second two parts of his questions.
Why are they suggesting that? Well, Chris, let me give you the real short answer. They need content. Plain and simple. And our fan base is easy to fire up and easy to get interactions from. You put it out there, you immediately get 4,000 quote tweets that say, y'all are idiots, but guess what? They're getting blown up because of it.
Clickbait.
It's 100%. Billy is not on any hot seat anywhere, unless I said it on our main show, unless Billy goes 0-12 or comes out dressed as Darth Vader and said he got death threats. He's not going anywhere. And he's not going anywhere.
Double whammy right there.
Huh?
Yeah, I had double whammy right there.
All the idiots. No, he's going to get. I'm on record as saying I believe he gets 5 years, unless he just goes 4-8 every season for 2-3 years in a row. The boosters are behind him. The ones that matter, are behind him. Don't pay attention to these guys and don't give them your interactions because that's all they want. They're all big game boomers as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to split Chris's last two questions up. I'm going to give you this one, CJ, then I'll go back to Hirsch for the last one. He says, do you guys think Billy's evaluation process will come back and bite him? He seems very stuck in his ways.
I think that you're going to see the exact opposite. I think it's going to be proven true when you see a lot of these guys, because I've already seen it with him, that the guys that he evaluates and he passes on, they usually prove him right. There's usually a good reason why he passed on them. We're not going to see it at the moment. Billy said it in the first interview he had. We're not gonna speed up to mess up. We're not gonna get in a hurry to end up putting ourselves in a bad position. So I think that's the main thing. You want to do it right, not do it fast. You keep doing everything too fast. skipping over a lot of stuff. We don't want to. We're not speed dating here. We're really trying to get this thing right. You know what I mean? We're not sitting here going through a catalog. The transfer portal isn't Tinder. Like, guys have this idea that the transfer portal is just you swipe, swipe. Like that's not it. That's not it at all. Let him evaluate. Let him do what he wants to do. He's the coach. He knows more than you and me. I don't think it's going to come back to bite him. I think it's actually going to benefit him in the long run. I think it's biting him right now. I think that this is where it's going to bite him is early on.
What if you're on What if you're on Tinder and they send you their tape?
You better swipe right, baby.
They send their game tape in. I'm just saying.
Microwave society, Chris, you know how I believe everybody wants stuff right now, and this has been my saying. Sometimes you got to put that stuff in the crock pot and let it cook. So to me, that's the patience I'm having with Billy as far as that process.
Any good meal takes time, baby.
The only thing I'm concerned about, and I know you didn't ask this question, is maybe Billy, not the CEO Billy, but the offensive coordinator Billy is what I'm more worried about as far as the pass game, not his running game. But as far as the passing game part of it, that to me is where I'm at a wait and see. But as far as his process, the way he's building the team, I'm definitely more than fine with that. Hirsch, his last question is about the wide receivers at Ohio State. He says, "Do we flip at least one of the receivers from Ohio State, Graham or Smith?" And he had some guys comment on it about Graham visiting being a surprise. Trey Simpson, who I ask questions every week, said, I was surprised he visited. And Chris was like, I almost spit my drink up when I heard the news. So, and I think Graham visited Miami this past weekend. So
he was making a tour. It's not a surprise to the staff. I mean, it's just a surprise to us because we're not privy to everything that they're doing. Do I think we get any of them? No, I don't. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, guys. I'm going to tell you what I think. I think we've got the receivers. I think we've got a good list of receivers. I think we pull a great wide receiver class. But I don't think it has Jeremiah Smith or any of those or Graham in that class. I just don't. And why? Look, if I'm a great wide receiver right now, I'm going to play for Heartline. I just am. He's getting these guys paid. And that's what matters, man. Now, you're not playing, you ain't just playing for recreational time. So go get paid. I can't blame him for that.
All right, we got CJ2 from Marlon Coleman. I give you the first one. He says, who do you have at star right now?
I don't know. I know that I know Dijon Johnson hasn't got here yet. So
technically he has now. That's
okay. So Dijon Johnson is one guy that I'd like to see if he could do that. I know at one point I think there was talk about maybe Sharif Denson getting in there in that spot. I think that I'm not going to be surprised if you see one of the younger freshmen really take hold of that position and make it their own. I could totally see that because we saw it so much last year. We saw guys that were just freshmen and they come in and they just were the best players on the field. We're asking questions like that, which means that there's no real veteran presence on the field that we're super duper confident in. So why not? I mean, any man's game. We'll see in fall when we end up in Salt Lake and who's out there playing. I think you're going to see a lot of rotation at all those positions in the secondary. I don't know if we're going to have a guy that's really going to start more than 30-40% of the game. I think it's going to be rotated in a lot.
I think that first snap you'll see either one of Perkins or Jadon, Hill probably out there at star. But like CJ said, it's definitely going to rotate. They're going to find the guy that wants it the most, and he's going to play. Yeah,
I'm thinking Hill because of here. I think Perkins is probably with Hill having the injuries he's had to his knees. I think Perkins is the more athletic guy, but I think Hill because he has it up here, and I think he's one of those guys that seems to me like a student of the game. that he takes the extra time in the film room and actually cares and loves football. He just comes off to me as one of those guys that loves the game and is going to put in the extra time. And maybe his even though his athletic ability has maybe took some hits with the knee injuries, I think the actual effort that he puts in the film room will get him that spot. So that's just how I feel about that one. Charlie, my bad. Back to Marlon Coleman. He says, Hurst, do you think both running backs get over 1,000 yards this season?
No, I don't, because I don't think they'll get enough carries between the two of them to get 1,000. I mean, I could see one of them getting it, but I think you're going to see Cam Carroll get a good share of carries as well. He's not going to get as much as Johnson or Trevor, but Cam Carroll is going to steal some carries from them guys and keep them fresh, which is a good thing. In this system, I wouldn't, unless we're just scoring 40 plus points a game and running all over everybody. You don't want to probably see these guys get 1,000 yards each, to be very honest with you, because they're going to be worn out by the end of the year.
Hot take. Hype Man West. I actually do think both running backs get 1,000 yards this year. And the reason why I say that is because I think Trevor will have the more, as far as yard per carry, I think he's going to break more than he did last year. He had a couple times. I remember the South Carolina game when he broke through. I think he has the capability of having more breakout runs, and Montrell will be our head guy. But to Hirsch's point, I think that third running back, because we saw how it started off last year when we tried the three running backs, and then eventually, I can't remember his name right now. Naquan kind of got pushed out of the rotation, and we went to Trevor and Montrell as far as the two-back system. So that may happen, but I think Trevor's ability to break the longer runs will cut down his carries, but because he's breaking the 60 and 50-yard runs, will get him closer to getting that 1,000 without having as much carries.
I think Montrell Johnson's going to have 1,000 yards rushing the ball, but I think Trevor's going to have over 1,000 yards, just all-purpose yards. I think that's kind of what I look at.
Good point.
Counter to your counter, though, is if both backs have 1,000 yards rushing, then Graham Mertz is a lot better than we thought.
That's what I'm hoping. And also the offensive line.
Well, yeah, but if Mertz ain't getting those guys out of the box, they ain't running for those kind of yards. Yeah. And that's just the way the game works.
All right, CJ, from my boy Charlie Sapp. He said, I'm concerned with the transfer portal recruiting. We kind of touched on this on our earlier pod. He said, with all of the staff they have, it seems like they are awfully slow evaluating. Is Charlie wrong?
I don't think they're slow evaluating. I really don't understand where that keeps coming from. I don't think that they don't know these kids. I don't think that they just like pick these kids out of a lineup and they don't know anything about them. And they're like, what about that guy? Let's go ahead and look through our paperwork here, see what we think. That evaluating has been done. If we're pursuing a kid, we've offered him to come on campus, we've already evaluated. He's coming. That's the whole idea, is they want him. You know, I don't think there's any evaluation going on anymore. I think that a lot of the evaluation that people get frustrated, it's like, oh, this kid doesn't get here, doesn't get it, because they've already evaluated. They don't want him. I've seen like all this crap about, like, especially the quarterbacks. They evaluated all the quarterbacks in the portal, guys. They exhausted every avenue, and this is what they came up with. They went with Mertz. You got the door slammed in your face a few times, but, like, I hate it for you. They've evaluated everybody. I'm sorry. They think that Graham Mertz is the best option, just like they do with all these kids. Whoever they brought in is who they really convinced themselves is the best option. You watch it. I'm going to go ahead and just go on a rant about the quarterback position. Leary that went to Kentucky, he's hurt. He's not going to be ready until the fall time. We weren't bringing him in to learn a new system with a guy who wasn't going to be able to play until the fall time. Coastal Carolina's quarterback, Mr. McCall, he's still watching Sesame Street to learn his numbers and letters at this point. Okay, like he cannot qualify. Michael Pratt was the guy that was rumored out of Tulane, and he was probably the guy that they really wanted. But a booster in Tulane, they actually have a pretty rich booster network at Tulane, if you didn't know, paid him money to come back and stay. Okay, It happens. This crap happens. You get the door shut in your face. Drake May was just trying to get a bigger bag. That's all that was. So you guys could just put the stuff down, put it away, and understand that there's nothing we could have done. Sam Hartman wasn't going to get medically cleared to play at the University of Florida. Keontae Johnson wasn't medically cleared to play at the University of Florida, so Sam Hartman wasn't going to be either. It sucks. We got dealt a crappy hand. I'm sorry one of our quarterbacks was a pedophile. I'm sorry we had another guy that was a top 5 pick. I'm sorry. That's just what we were dealt with. It sucks. I get it. I get the frustrations with the transfer portal. But that's why you don't build football teams with the damn transfer portal in the first place.
Exactly.
Because you can't rely on it. I'm done.
Well, I was gonna see which one of you guys wanted this next question, but I would go to give CJ a chance to breathe because I know we talked about this. I think last week when it was first brought up in our group chat. But this is from Bo Dawes, and this is one of the good questions that we didn't mention on the earlier pod. That's why I say I think we had some good questions this week. He says, "What do you think, if any, will be the effects of the Jags playing in the swamp? Might be Hirsch."
I'm
Good
of
question.
two minds.
I like.
I'm of two minds on this subject, and
We're going to have better attendance?
we've actually talked about this off air. I, for one, I don't really like the idea. I mean, you're already putting Billy in a situation. You're going to put the ground crew into a hell of a situation to have this field ready, week in and week out. I guess it'll just depend on how the schedules alternate and things of that nature. Now, the guys here in this podcast with me brought up a good point. If the Cons are willing to throw a good chunk of change at the University of Florida and pay for the renovations for the stadium or something of that nature, that's going to be pretty hard to say no to. I mean, you don't have to ask boosters for that money. So the boosters can put more money towards your NIL and things of that nature. So while part of me is like, man, you don't want to put Billy at a disadvantage of giving him a tore up field week in and week out as he's trying to, build this thing up. Another part of me sitting there saying, you know what, that money could, if they would give us the money, to play here, that would be a big, big help. So I guess in the end of the day, it just depends on, does that happen? Do they reach out to Strickland and company and the University of Florida and say, hey, we'd like to play our games there. It's really the shortest, quickest, stadium from Jacksonville with great capacity. As these guys said, you probably get more fans than you do for an average Jacksonville game. I mean, then you get all the people coming up and down 75 that would come to the game. It's
also, too, to be fair, the Jags only have six home games because they play two of them in London.
Yeah, they always play in London.
They have two in London. I mean, they wouldn't
have
play
those international games.
Yeah, so they wouldn't play 8 or 9 games here. They'd probably play about 6 or 7 actual games in the swamp. And then that would also be with us being away for a lot of our games this season too. So, I mean, logistically, depends on what it looks like with the schedule. You probably could make it happen. The only thing I would be pissed off about is having like Jacksonville Jaguar stuff all over the field while we're trying to play, because then we look like the Miami Hurricanes out there trying to play on Dolphins logos, and I'm not for that.
It'll be an interesting situation, but if anybody's got the money, the Khan family has the money to make it worth our while. So yeah, we'll see.
All right, CJ, last question for you. It's not kind of a question, but it turned into a question with some comments from another fan. Robert Dorman says, Billy's on the hot seat. We have our 3rd straight losing season, even though it will only be Billy's 2nd, which is probable. If significant improvement is not made by 2024, goodbye, Billy. He kind of made a statement, not a question. Then Joshua Wallace says he is not going to be on the hot seat. And Robert Dorman said, I think he already is. He will get 3 years, though. So how do you feel about what he just said?
I'll kind of go back to what was going on with the national media and things that they were saying. In this day and age, especially with Florida, we fired coaches pretty fast the last few times, right? I know Dan Mullen went from New Year's Six bowls to gone, So if you're just on the outside looking in, you would probably believe that Florida isn't going to wait very long because they don't really have a history of waiting very long in the last few years. And that's really easy to do. If I was on the outside looking in, if I wasn't a Florida fan and I didn't keep up with it as much as I do, and I was just somebody, I would look at Florida and say, man, if they don't win this year, that guy's gone. So that's where a lot of this is coming from. I understand that. Billy Napier, to me, and I told somebody, I don't care if we go 4-8, if we go 5-7. Is it going to suck? Yeah. Am I going to be pissed? Oh yeah, I'm going to be pissed. But I understand that we are not in a great position. Our schedule doesn't do us any favors. You've got to go to LSU. You've got, you got Florida State coming here. You've got to go to Utah. You've got Georgia on your schedule that you've got to play. You've got to go. You got Tennessee that looks really good. You've got to go to Kentucky, which is always a hard place to play. It doesn't lend itself very well. You've got Arkansas, the returning KJ Jefferson. I look up and down the record, and it's hard for me to find 6 wins. I can get 5. I can look at it and say there's 5. But when you look at 2 of those games, we're not beating LSU. We're not beating Georgia. I'm not beating the drum. It's just, I hate it for them. And as much as I hate to say it, we're probably not beating an FSU team unless they have something catastrophic go wrong. That roster looks pretty good that they've built. They've built a pretty good team. Now, is it their team that they've built going to be very good for the years after? I don't know. But this year they're going to probably have a pretty good team. You've got Tennessee. I'm curious to see what they look like with Overthrow Joe back there at quarterback now. So where's he at? The last time we played him, we messed him up pretty good, but apparently they like what they've seen as his progression. Arkansas, like I said, is coming to town with KJ Jefferson. He's a hell of a football player. He's going to do things. He's going to bring what Anthony Richardson brought to the table as a quarterback, being able to kind of make up for some of where his team lacks. It's tough, and it's tough. What I really think, and Hurst said, I think 5 years is probably right. I think Billy gets 5 years unless he does something really stupid, like have a co-ed fall off a moped or something like that. Like anything short of that, I don't think he's going anywhere, especially if he's recruiting well. I think that's going to help your case. Like you look at it this way, you've got to know that the program's pointed in the right direction. And at whatever point it looks like the program's not pointed in the right direction, that's when you can start to push the panic button. But the record on the season isn't really always indicative. It doesn't always tell the whole story as much as I think a lot of us like to believe. We look at teams every year on the outside looking in that we don't cover, that we don't know anybody personally involved with the universities. And I could look at such and such team and say, like Missouri, like I could look at Missouri and be like, I don't think Missouri's got anything going on. They're going to have a different outlook over there. If the people that really follow Missouri, they just extended Drinkwitz. They probably look at their program totally different than anybody else would that's not a Missouri fan, just like us. How we look at Florida, totally different than anybody that's not a Florida fan looks at it because we are in the network. So there's different things. There's a lot of positivity around the program. I don't think Billy's got much to worry about, like I said, outside of something just absolutely catastrophic happening. I think he's safe. I don't think the seat is hot. I really don't buy into that. I mean, I get, like I said, I can understand why somebody would say that, but I don't think so.
I don't understand why somebody would say that, even if you have. I mean, to me, I always said that this is year 1 for Billy,
right?
With everything, especially when what we put on. I think our Twitter page when you talked about the rot and how bad it was. People have to maybe I don't want to even understand how the outside people say that either. This is just in
prior history.
Prior
history. It's what CJ said earlier. We've
but the reasons for, I mean, we've never fired. I don't know if we fired a coach in year 2. Like, how can you be in the hot seat in year 2?
Because the fan base has become impatient with everything.
Even our fires, McElwain,
we've fired him in 2.5 years.
Nobody's been fired.
But it's also a lot easier as a fan to fire a coach because you're not paying the buyout. You're not paying the previous buyout. We're still paying on Mullins' buyout.
You're not paying the new coach that's got to come in
either. I just don't get after 1 year a coach is on a hot seat. That to me, I don't care where you from. The NFL, unless you're the Houston Texans, there's no way, because they fired the last 2 coaches after 1 year. There's no fan base that should be like, oh, as our coach gonna get fired after 1 year. No, nobody's done that but the Houston Texans.
All I can tell you is I've talked to people that are boosters and have talked to higher up boosters that have said it doesn't matter. They're not firing another coach anytime soon.
Yeah, but I mean, 1 year, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I know that's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's not happening. So I don't know why anybody would say it. But they understand that because of the previous fire a coach, get another coach, fire a coach, get another coach, that they've helped create the situation. Now, the previous coaches did themselves no justice. They didn't do themselves any favors. I mean, Mullen just quit caring and just quit, being the father figure or the head coach figure of his team, and just was like, y'all just do whatever. I want out of here. I mean, Napier ain't that guy. Napier is, I'm building my team. I'm building for the long run. I'm building to be at the University of Florida. You haven't heard any rumors ever about Napier saying his long goal was the NFL or anything like that. I mean, right now, Billy Napier sees a long future at Florida. And that is something we have, Urban Meyer wasn't that kind of guy. Urban's always going to be that guy. As soon as you get the next opportunity, he's going to jump for it.
Yeah.
I think Billy wants to be here and wants to be here a long time. So he's going to build things the long route.
All right. That's it. That's all I have, man. Go to the community questions.
All right, man. The community question this week, and as I switch over because I'm on the wrong spot, was if you were, what was it again, CJ? I'm sorry. Here it is. My fault, guys. If you were the commissioner of the college football, what would you change first? So, I know a lot of people responded to this, and most of the replies were very, very similar. But I'm going to start with a few that weren't. One, Anthony Sills, I'm sorry, Anthony, not Sills, said conferences. They would be more regional oriented. Anthony, I'm on board with you, brother. That's something I'm about. I don't like the super conferences. I don't like the way that college football is going to that aspect. I'm more old school with the smaller regional conferences. I think it was better for your yearly regional matchups and things like that. And I think we're going to lose a lot of that and a lot of the history we all grew up with in college football. Coach Guns, all college football playoff games are at campuses except the Natty. I like that. I actually do like that. I understand why they're not, because the corporation's got to get in on it, and money rules all at the end of the day. But that would be excited, especially if you're a 1 seed playing the 8 seed in the playoff or however it's slated, and you had some kind of home field advantage. That would make it cool. A lot of people, Tyler Bohannon said the targeting rule. I can't necessarily agree with that. It's wildly inconsistent, but I understand why they do it, but it still sucks. Tony Nelson, transfer portal. Allow 1 transfer per player. The exceptions are your position or head coach transfers, leaves, or gets fired. The other exception would be grad transfer. So outside of 1 transfer policy, those would be the exceptions. Tony, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. The transfer portal has gotten insane to me. I feel like the rules change every year as it is already. It's just wild to me. Jeremiah Coker says 12-team college football playoff this year. We have waited long enough. Some would say, Jeremiah, that we'd like to keep waiting, but that to each their own. If you want that, more power to you, man. Jed Keel, Jed, you send in replies all the time, man. We appreciate you listening. Something NIL related. Make it more of what it was intended and less about money to go to a school. Jed, and Jed echoes what a lot of people that responded to this question said. A lot of our replies are NIL based, and I'm sorry, guys, if I don't get to each and every one of them. But yeah, it needs some structure, and they let things get out of hand on them too quick, for sure. Like they weren't prepared, and now here's what you get out of it. Do we think the players deserve their slice of the pie? Absolutely. Absolutely they do. But there needs to be some better regulation to it, without a doubt. Rick Groff, he also said something. My change would be that you cannot receive an NIL contract until 1 year of college football played. Still gives you 2 years of making money off your name, but prevents schools from bidding on kids, affecting their initial recruitment. Rick, I actually really like that idea.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I really, really like that idea. And here's another thing. Like, you don't know what you're getting on these kids. I mean, you never do. People can look at Jeremiah Smith, and a lot of coaches have said he's the best wide receiver prospect to come out in 4, 5, 6 years. And he may well be, but he may step on campus and never do anything. You know, we've seen it happen with tons of 5-star players. If Ronald Powell was a recruit today, he would get an NIL deal through the roof. But would y'all think he played up to it when he got to the University of Florida? I mean, it's a debatable subject. A lot of talk about, you know, the NIL. Dustin, a big time listener since day one, Dustin said, get a genuine salary structure for players going forward. And once again, yes, slant, if it's done by year, you know, like you get certain amount each year, and it can increase as you know. Lucas the Gator Man said, put a cap on NIL. So, I mean, that's a lot of the responses we got. Wes, did you get anything?
Yeah,
anything different?
Yeah, I got a lot of similar things. I don't have a few, so I'll just shoot through them. And Ryan Gurn said NIL cap. Jay Stubbs says one of the ones you got earlier about change the logistics of the targeting rule. Incidental hit, just the penalty. He doesn't think the ejection is warranted. James Lynn said, I don't kind of agree with James on this one. I like what our previous response was. He says, if you have a scholarship, you shouldn't need NIL to be paid to play. But I like the 1 year thing that the previous guy just said. Tim Fonville said, how many more transfers? Or he asked a question that should have been on the other. He said, how many transfers can we get at this time? We have 2 scholarships available, just to answer that question. Andrew Maddox says, get rid of the NIL and transfer portal. Charlie Sapp said, salary cap. Bo Dahl says, the NIL fiasco and transfer portals are killing the game. And so you can't get under control. Steve Bailey says, establish guardrails for the transfer portal. Brian Holden said, this is he wanted, let's get Kirby Smart to the NFL. Carol Martin said NIL. Tim Scott, eliminate NIL. David Hunt says take away NIL and get rid of the targeting. And Justin Wood said make it harsh punishment for John Ruiz every time he pays to beat us for a recruit. He was saying that sarcastically, and that's all we have for that.
CJ, what would your change be, man?
All the NIL portal stuff, that might have nothing to do with that. First thing I would do is I would take all the little bowl games like we played in, Las Vegas Bowl, the Outback Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl, all that stuff, and we're going to move it to the first game of the season. It would be the kickoff games. So you have your playoffs in the wintertime. Those are your big bowls, and then you take those smaller bowls that most of the players end up opting out of anyway and make those your kickoff games. So now you have a bunch of really cool kickoff games like we would kick off with Oregon State. Florida State would kick off with Oklahoma. You would see games like that to start the year, and they would still be under the bowl game premise. You would still have your bowl game, but you hadn't have a bunch of people that have opted out and left. They've already be in the NFL. So you'd have basically your new team. You'd have a bunch of interesting matchups and a bunch of neutral sites to start the season. And I think that would really help with where we're at, where, bowl games have kind of become a little meaningless now. You're playing in them now. They're within the season. That game means something. You need to win or you lose. It matters now. It matters for the players playing in it, and all the kids that would have been worried about injuries playing in a meaningless bowl game. They're already gone. So you would separate your playoffs, and then you just have the opening Labor Day slate of bowl games. I think that would solve a lot of our issues. I think it would help with a lot of different things and give us some really cool matchups to kick the season off without losing a lot of the luster of the bowl games with the guys, the stars of the sport that aren't there to play in them.
I like that. That's really, really solid. See, CJ brings this well thought out stuff to the table, man. I just give like 2-sentence answers. Wes?
Yeah, I like CJ's idea, but I had more of a schedule these games more in advance because because of how bowl games are, you might have a team that didn't make a bowl game for whatever reason, and then they don't have anybody that played that at the beginning of that year. So I was in the same mindset of CJ. I think interconference, like how you have the Big Ten ACC Challenge or the SEC, was it Big 12 Challenge? I'm more of having things like that to start the season. That way it's already set in stone, and you know who you're maybe going to play. It can rotate every year, but I believe every team, because we have Florida State set on our schedule, even though Georgia has Georgia Tech set on their schedule. Teams like Alabama play Auburn as far as their rival, so they don't have particularly that game to start. Ohio State has Michigan on their schedule, so their end of the year, they already have their rival embedded in their schedule in conference. So I believe those teams should be playing other schools, and you give that flexibility playing away. You give, like how we were talking about earlier, you get that environment of saying Notre Dame is coming to Florida, wow, or Notre Dame is going to Alabama, or Alabama is going to play at Notre Dame. So to give fans those experiences. So I'm with CJ in that same mindset, but I want to more like have it set but and not do a bowl, because Illinois might not make a bowl one year, and they might make a New Year's Six the next year. So that's why I see it that way. But I'm with you, CJ. More interconference games.
Yeah, I'd like to go back, and I kind of hit on this a second ago. I'd like to go back to smaller conferences. If you can expand the playoff, that's fine. But make conference championships mean something. Make smaller conferences, and those conference champions, they get into the playoff. I don't need 2-loss, whoever, unless you won your conference outright, you won your division and then you won your championship game or whatever, have you not? I don't want the second place team necessarily from the ACC being in the playoffs. I miss old school matchups that you used to see all over the country that had a lot of rich history to them, and that we don't see as much anymore. As a Florida fan, I miss us playing teams like Auburn. Like it sucks that we don't play Auburn every year now like we used to. And some of that's just, as college football seems to get bigger and bigger, it takes away a lot of the things that made me love college football, and it kind of sucks.
So you want the 5 Power 5 champions and maybe 3 at-large bids for 8?
I ain't saying there's got to be a Power 5. That's what I'm saying, though. You could, to heck with the Power 5. I don't need a Power 5. Make smaller conferences, 18 conferences. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Gotcha. That are regional. Like y'all were talking, and you were talking about regional. You have the Pac-12, make it the Pac-8. You have the Big 10, Big 8, and then you could, and then you could have something say the Northeastern 8 or whatever, goofy name.
Bring the Big East back.
We've lost. Yeah, the Big East. We've lost a lot of those conferences. We lost.
Yeah.
The Big 8 doesn't exist anymore. The Southwestern Conference doesn't exist
that's
anymore.
Exactly what I was.
The WAC is gone. I mean, there's a lot of conferences that don't have a place anymore. The Big East. And
maybe just the conference name doesn't have to mean that nothing but small teams play in it. You know what I mean? Like and that's another thing. We've come synonymous with SEC and Big 12, all of that instead of, and you think, well, we watch MAC for seeing high scoring, crazy football games, but the winner of the conference doesn't really ever hardly mean anything to us in the big picture of things. And that's, it's just, in the end for me, it's just, I feel like when we go to these super conferences, like it seems to be trending to, a lot of the things that used to matter are not going to matter very much. And a lot of the little guys are just going to get buried and not matter at all. So, hey, smaller schools, smaller money pools, and money rules the world. We know this. It is the way, it is what it is. And we can't change that. But if I could, I would. And that's the point of the question. All right, guys, man, we appreciate y'all this week for all the great responses. Tons of questions this week, guys. That's the way we like it, man. The more questions, the better. Don't be afraid to send in a question, man. We don't mind it. We'll answer it to the best of our ability. We may say some of these questions are a little outrageous sometimes, like is Billy being on the hot seat after a year or two, but that's your opinion, guys. I mean, if you feel that way, that's the way you feel. I mean, but it ain't going to happen. But hey, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's what makes this great. That's what makes us keep, just to answer these questions and to give our opinion. You're listening to our opinion. We'll listen to yours. That's how it runs. So guys, thank you as always for all your questions and all your responses. We love the interactions. If you haven't already, man, and you're here, you're listening, you're like, hey, this show's pretty cool, man. I like it. Go ahead. Consider hitting that subscribe button right there. Drop a like, hit the notification bell so you get the notification every time we drop new content, guys. And drop us a comment below our question for next week's episode. And if you want, go ahead and check out our friends at Alma Mater. Like we said at the beginning, check out some of this great Gator merchandise that supports Gator athletes. And, as we said, it's a Gator business and you're supporting a great, great Gator business. So, guys, until next week, send those questions in, man. Keep them coming our way. Look for that new community question. I'm sure CJ will drum up another one this week that's very thought-provoking and just blows us all away because I'm not good at this. That's why CJ is the man and I'm just one of the hosts. We love you, Gator Nation. Thank you so much for all your interactions. Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.